actually wanted to get Dr. Casabatla's answer to something that I think is a talking point for a lot of climate deniers when they're arguing against the need for climate action.
Could you explain the difference between natural and human-caused climate change?
Well, a couple of things, right? One, climate system of the Earth is extremely complex, okay? It involves interaction with energy coming in from the sun and non-linear complex interaction between the oceans and the atmosphere and the land and the atmosphere. There are these complex interactions that take place. Climate naturally varies.
What Dr. Casabatla is talking about here is an Earth systems phenomenon known as global warming natural cycle. Using paleo data spanning back about 1 million years, we've hypothesized that the Earth has naturally switched back and forth from warm periods to ice ages multiple times due to a variety of factors that help keep our overall temperature balance within certain natural bounds. However, our ancient Earth systems have recently run into a new dilemma: human industrial activity.
The amount of CO2 in the atmosphere has risen pretty significantly in the last 250 years or so, ever since the advent of industrialization. Partly because of fossil fuel combustion, and partly because of land clearing, deforestation in the tropics. Now, this has driven CO2 levels up in the atmosphere. In the atmosphere, CO2 levels fluctuated between 180 parts per million and 280 parts per million between glacial and interglacial periods. Because of the consequence of human actions, CO2 has now risen to about 415 parts per million today, and it's still rising at about 2.5 parts per million a year. We are pretty confident that this rise in CO2, along with human-induced rise in other greenhouse gases like methane and CFCs and things like that, have led to a warming of global average temperature increase of about 1.1 to 1.1 degrees Celsius. But what we are seeing clearly is superimposed on what we call natural variability is this trend that's clearly driven by changes wrought because of human activity. So yes, there's always natural climate variability, but we're seeing changes that are above and beyond that natural variability.
So while the go-to myth for climate change deniers that our current global warming is natural seems harmless enough, it can actually be pretty dangerous. Recognizing that it's human activity pumping all these greenhouse gases into the atmosphere and impacting Earth systems at such a massive scale is the first step to recognizing that it will take even more human action to greatly reduce our carbon emissions before irreversible damage is done.